learning how much difference college makes, and all of you already know that, but learning the tricks, the ins and outs of working with the system to find out how to pick a college, how to pick a major, how to make yourself stand out from the crowd. When my son came along, it was clear that we found out before long he was in the gifted program, and he did all of that. He's a graduate of Harvard, and he's in second year at Yale Law School. I learned a lot in that process also. And as Carmen said, I worked on creating the gifted high school program. We already had a gifted program in Bellevue, and we had a desire to expand it into high school. And I did that because my son was in 5th grade at the time, and he wanted the program to continue. It was a perfect fit for him. And so in getting involved in that, I also ended up getting involved in creating a volunteer group called, I don't know what to call it, a volunteer group that helped students apply to college, which from that I got hired to help students apply to college by both a private company and then on my own. And then when my son graduated, Interlake High School hired me to continue working with the gifted kids on their internships, and also to continue working with the International Baccalaureate program and helping make sure that the students all meet the requirements. I'm not the coordinator. You have to be a teacher to be the coordinator, and I'm not a teacher. I have a bachelor's in journalism and an MBA, which is pretty good considering neither of my parents even finished high school. So I believe in college. I believe it makes a difference in your life, and I believe that how you choose a college and why you choose a college really matters. So, starting with this is Harvard. I put up this picture of the hall where they dine as freshmen because it's one of my favorites. I think I took it when my son was in school. You get basically one or two chances as an adult to see it. Mostly, it's you have to be a student there to get in there. Getting into college is a long process. There's a lot of things that are important. But one of the things that students and others have told me over and over is that getting into college is kind of a crapshoot. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, that's like a roll of the dice. You don't know how the dice are going to land, and it's completely by chance. But, like in any game, there are students who win. And I've noticed over the years some different things about students who win. They own their process, they're passionate, motivated, determined, hard workers. They put in the effort, no one did it for them. And I really want to emphasize that because what happens a lot with parents in general, and quite honestly with immigrant parents more than others, is you want to own the process for them. You do that and they withdraw. And if they withdraw, don't bump your mother, they withdraw, they are not totally invested in what's happening. And a college admissions officer can pick that up in an instant. They show compassion and caring for others. Yes, civic involvement is super important. It is the tiebreaker. If all things are equal, if your child is applying to a school and they have the same grades and the same test scores and the same experiences as a variety of other students who are applying from the similar part of the country, the tiebreaker is how involved are they in their community. So if they're not involved in their community, and their community can include the school, and it can include their church, and it can include the city itself, but they need to be involved. They favored humility over arrogance. Nobody who wrote an arrogant, I can't say nobody, but almost no one who writes an arrogant application does very well in the college process. The people who are reviewing these things are human beings, and being arrogant is off-putting. They much prefer someone who has a little bit of humility. one student I worked with years ago, a Chinese boy by the name of Victor, who went to Princeton, applied, and I could not get him to tell people anything really positive about himself. It's all in their list of activities and the awards he'd won, but I didn't realize until later that he wrote an essay about swimming and just talked about his rediscovery of loving swimming, not trying to just shave the next quarter of a second off. And I found out later that he actually was an Ironman swimmer. He never said it once in his essay, but it was there in his awards, and therefore it was so much more meaningful. College is more than a name. How many of you want your kids to go to Harvard or Yale or Stanford? Nobody. That's unusual. Well, in my experience, everybody comes in with a very similar list of schools they're applying to. About 9 of them are identical, and then there's usually 2 or 3 more. And then they all apply to the same school. And when a college is putting their class together, they're going to look at the area you came from physically, like you're from Pacific Northwest, you're from a public school, you're from, Bellevue, Washington. You've done a certain number of activities, and they might be things like a lot of you do orchestra. They might be that you took a certain language, a lot of you took Chinese. So you don't stand out from each other in any way. I don't care how smart you are not all going to get into those top schools because you're competing against each other, and they want more variety than that. The variety is not just ethnicity. It is parts of the country you come from. It is the activities that you've been involved in. It is also your major. If you're all computer science majors, guess what? There isn't going to be room for all of you. So you have to figure out how you differ from the people around you and be willing to emphasize that. I did a little research just to figure out, well, how much does it matter if you get an Ivy League education? And the top 5, the CEOs of the top 5 Fortune 500 companies, none of them went to very impressive schools. Texas A&M might be the most impressive school on that list.
How about a graduate school?
Huh?
How about a graduate school?
Graduate school's different. We're talking about people applying to college. And you can get into a great graduate school from a podunk college. But at the level you're applying, and actually none of these guys went to graduate school. This is their highest level of education listed right there. If they did a graduate degree, they did it after they were already employed. And often when a company appoints someone to the position of MBA, then they will have them also do an executive MBA program. And I know several executives on Fortune 500 companies who've done that. But it's kind of different at that point. Then the school is looking at the fact of like, oh wow, you're the president of Walmart. Walmart, sure, we'll take you into our executive program. There's only one Ivy-educated CEO in the top 10 companies of the Fortune 500, and it happens to be Jeff Bezos. So I also looked at, you don't all want to be CEOs, but which universities claim the most famous scientists? Most of them aren't even U.S. universities. And I was surprised to see that number 2 on this list after University of Tokyo is Dartmouth. Dartmouth is a small school. It's Ivy, but it's a small school, and there aren't a lot of people who put it on the top of their list. University of Toronto. University of Toronto Waterloo is a place where Microsoft hires a lot of people. Duke is my favorite school for bio. I think it's got an amazing biology program. But a lot of these you'll notice: London, Edinburgh, Paris, London, Switzerland. So it wasn't in the top 10, but I decided to go with Princeton, which was number 11, say that MIT is number 14, and Harvard is number 15. So knowing all that, how do you choose the school you want? Are you choosing a college for the bragging rights? If so, go for that top 10 list. But also think about what's the best education for your career choice. What has the most appealing research opportunities? The alumni network and contacts, the location. Do you want to be close to home or close to a future job? The job market, like if you're doing computer science, you might want to be here or in the Bay Area or in New York. Size, cost. Public schools seem cheaper than private schools. For that reason, I went to a public school. I know now that it can actually be cheaper to go to a private school if you really do need the money. The private school will make up for it, and it usually doesn't come. Well, for the most elite schools, it does not come in the form of loans. I want to see people looking for a good fit academically. If you get into the top school in the country, which I think is standard right now, but if you get into the top school in the country as the lowest person, if your grades and test scores put you right at the bottom of who they accepted, you are going to struggle every day of your life, and you are not going to be a standout. Going to a school where you can stand out gets you a lot more. It gets you awards, it gets you attention from professors, it gets you connected to alumni. You have to consider those things as well. And again, it's like what your priorities are. The majors and programs. All schools are different. They may have the same majors, but they may be totally constructed in a totally different way. Mason, who you're going to hear from later, just started Harvard Law School, and my son's at Yale. I don't think there are two more different programs out there, and they're considered two of the top ones, but they're very, very different from one another. The size, the location, the campus climate values, and the activities available. So two things. One is, if you're not happy at a school, you're not going to do too well there, so make sure it's a place you will truly be happy. And the other is take the time to know the colleges you're applying to, both so that you know you will be happy, and also so that you know when you have to answer their question, why this school, so you can answer it really deeply, with knowledge of the school, and not just, I love the campus, the people seem friendly, which people write all the time. Okay, what colleges look for? So now they're looking at you, because this is a marriage. You have to love them, but they have to love you too. They're looking at your grades and your rigor, coursework, and your test work. We all know that. That's the top thing on the list, but it's not the only thing on the list. Just having a high school GPA and actual SAT score won't get you into an Ivy League school. However, most highly intelligent, qualified students get rejected. In order to get admitted, you're going to need to show you're not just smart, but special too. That's from USA Today article from April 2017 that's called "Here's What It Really Takes to Get into the Ivy League These Days." And an MIT student I worked with said, while your grades are important, your depth of extracurricular activities and evidence that you're not just an encyclopedia or test-taking machine are equally important. Admissions wants to see that applicants are human. The first thing they do when they get your application is make sure you're qualified to be there and that you're not crazy or that you're not dangerous. Once they've decided that, then you're qualified to be there, but they have probably, in most cases, depends on the percentage they accept, but they have many more times the number of qualified students than they have slots for. And they don't just pick the smartest ones. They look to put together a nice variety of activities and personalities and majors and all kinds of things that go into their list. They look for passion. Students with a passion do really well in this process. And the passion that does best is when it's career-oriented. The second best is when it's helping other people oriented. One of my favorite essays of all time from years and years ago was a Stanford student who struggled to find a subject to write about. She didn't have the test scores or the GPA that guaranteed entrance to a school like Stanford. She had a 33 SAT or 33 ACT and I think a 3.9 GPA. She went to Newport. Competition's pretty tough from there. And she wrote several essays that were good, but not spectacular. And I kept asking her what she wanted to do. And we tried to find a passion in her. And she wanted to write about something sciencey because that was her major. But the only thing she really had a lot of passion about was art. So we talked about it one day. I said, just forget that's not what you don't want to write about, but tell me about it. And then the example she gave to me about art was the realization that art is so beautiful, nature is so beautiful in its artistic way of doing everything. Everything in art and nature is designed to be perfectly what it is and what it does. And then she said, take the mitochondria. And it gave me chills. I knew we had the perfect essay. She got in early action and graduated from Stanford and loved it there.
What does that mean?
The mitochondria is part of it's something from biology. So the mitochondria has these little hair things that hang down, and they allow more. I'm not a biologist. More hydrogen or whatever it's trying to do. It's trying to create energy, and more of it can pass through those little hairs because those hairs give it more surface space. And when she realized that, she said she no longer had to study the parts because now they made sense to her. And she applied that to every part of her education. And I think it was an amazing breakthrough from her. And it showed her as someone who loved to learn and really cared about what she was learning and was really passionate about it.
Also, they got my attention. They got their mission office. Right?
Right. Okay, but there's also another kind of passion, and this kind of cracked me up because I don't recommend people do this, but I do know people who've done it, that it has worked. I had this insane enthusiasm for coming here. I bombarded them with email addendums. That enthusiasm as well as grades and activities got me in. I know somebody that got into University of Washington several years ago with a 2.9 GPA, and I think he'd used the same approach. He made friends with somebody in missions and called them almost every week. So it's not like I think that's the right answer, but passion is good, no matter how you express it. Genuine school and community involvement. Obviously you're hearing a lot about that today, but it really truly matters. This is from Forbes, April 2018. They were reporting on a survey that had been done of admissions officers. And I'd like to point out that in private schools, 61% of admissions officers at private schools agreed with the statement that, where's the statement? Community service is essentially a tiebreaker between equally qualified students when all other factors are equal. And for some colleges, it's much more important than others. I think Yale really emphasizes involvement in your community and what you're going to do with it. Colleges want people that are going to come there and get an education and make a difference in the world because it reflects really well on them. It's not a laundry list they're looking for. And this student, I think, said it well. USC students said it doesn't seem like colleges look for a long list of activities so much as they look for a few to which you are really committed. Definitely emphasize depth over quantity. When a student starts high school, they can spend the first year or so trying to figure out what they love, but then they need to really apply themselves to that area. If they decide they want to do something like, my son knew in fourth grade he wanted to pursue law. And so in high school, he did debate, he did Junior States America, he did youth court here in the city of Bellevue. His internship was for an appellate court judge. there are a lot of things you can do that show your passion and show that you care about it enough to go out and pursue it. So you can use those civic engagement opportunities in two ways. Not only does it look good on your resume that you're doing civic engagement, but you can also use those opportunities to find what you're passionate about. There are so many organizations, not just the city itself, but there are so many organizations in this area that welcome interns, that welcome student volunteers. And I put it there, I know that you unless you take a picture of it, you probably won't be able to remember this, but you can just search for it. The Kirkland Parks has a really well put together guide on where to volunteer. It's not just about Kirkland, it's Bellevue, it's Redmond, it's Renton, it's all over. Most not so for profits have roles for students. Local and Father Way colleges have programs that are in the summer often. Don't think that if you go to a program like say, Johns Hopkins offers a program on biology. Don't think if you go to those that you're going to get into Johns Hopkins, because the people running those programs generally are not the people who are running the college. But that doesn't mean the program isn't good. So don't choose a program based on that's the college I want to go to. Choose a program based on that's the right program. I can learn about whatever it is you're interested in. And then I just did a whole lot of interests. This was kind of off the top of my head, thinking about like what interests people have and what kinds of things might apply to it. There are a ton of opportunities. You can start young. You might find out at 15 that you're not old enough to do something, but they might remember that you were there, and then the next year when you are old enough, you can come back and do it. Okay, colleges also look for your interpersonal skills and values. One of the things that's scariest, I think, to college admissions officers is if you're smart and you show no social skills. Smart kids had a reputation for years of being nerds and geeks and not being able to talk to other people. One of the motivators behind starting the Gifted High School program was to put really smart kids together so that they had peers and they learned how to be friends and how to develop those kinds of relationships that matter. Because ultimately, social skills matter. Unless you are doing research alone in a lab, and I have a nephew who does that. He has a PhD in medical pathology. That's it, PhD in medical pathology. And he sits in a lab all day and he's very happy there. But most jobs aren't like that. So learning the skills to get along and work with others is super important. And that's, again, something you can get from community involvement as well as involvement in your schools. I don't know if this student is right, but I think that it was an interesting thought. I usually don't think that the interviews are terribly important, but it does depend on the school, how much power that the interviewer has. And this person felt like connecting with the interviewer really helped them. Okay. Colleges look for, they don't look for you to do early action or early decision. However, sometimes it makes a difference. You just have to consider the college and what the college is using that number for. So I have the early action or early decision number compared to the regular decision admissions percentages. So you can see Brown accept 21.9% off of their, this is for the class of 2021. They accepted 21.9% from their early decision batch, but only 9% from their regular decision. However, and this is super important, some schools are using early decision for a special purpose. If they are a highly athletic school, if they have a number of athletic programs that are important to them, all athletes that they are recruiting are accepted in early decision. If they If they have certain, whether they're legacies or whether it's, senators' children, that they feel like they have to get, those are going to happen in early decision. You need to find out what the school is doing and what it means. MIT is a really good example. If you are female, apply early decision because they take more females in early decision than males by far. MIT wants to have a 50-50 split between men and women. They're not there yet. They're 48-52, I think. So every early decision period, they pick up as many women as they can. It's a good time for girls to apply, but not such a good time for boys. Okay, so I had some of that on this. Try to figure out what a school's doing with its EAED options, and don't waste yours on a school that's going to use it to get all their athletes. Okay, and then finally the essay. This is the part that I work with the most because the essay is the one place where you can actually get to insert your own personality into an application to make sure you spend a lot of time on them. USC students said that. These are, I did a survey some years ago. It was all Interlake students and students I worked with. And I just picked some of the quotes from their replies. This one I think is my son. He said this in kind of a negative. My grades prevented me from being immediately discarded. But I ultimately think the main things that got me through the admissions process were the teacher recommendations and college essays. After this survey, a year or two after that, he, under the Public Information Act, requested his file from Harvard. And it was half a page of notes was all that was in the file. And there was a little matrix of what they liked and didn't like about him. And I think from what they had written on that matrix, he was pretty right about what they liked. You have to be able to differentiate yourself. We're back to that. Okay, so the parent's responsibilities. I told you this is the student's job, but the parent does have a responsibility. From the beginning of high school, you have to make sure your child knows what the parameters are for college. The financial situation matters. If you are middle class or upper middle class, the chances are good that the colleges are going to think you can afford to send your student to college. You're going to be able to afford to pay for it, whether you believe it or not. That the way they figure that out doesn't necessarily take into account the way you like to spend your money. So you have to know what you can afford. You need to start talking about what it generally takes to get into college, and that's like all the list I've just gone through. It's much more than just great grades and great test scores. You have to figure out what the priorities are. If they're going to go to grad school, and I talked about that a minute ago, it's going to cost money too, and it's going to cost time too. You're going to figure out what college is going to be the best fit for the grad schools you might be interested in. It's a lot to expect because, at 17 years old, you really want to know what you want to do with the rest of your life. But some people do. Did you know, for instance, that University of Washington accepts the highest per capita acceptance rate of students wanting to get into University of Washington Medical School is not from University of Washington. It's actually from Whitman College. It's true, it's been true for 50 years. And you have to emphasize to your students that this is their journey. You'll support them, but they have to take charge of this. I started telling my son when he was in elementary school that school was his job, not mine. If he wanted help or advice, I would help him, but I wasn't going to track it and I wasn't going to stay on top of him about it. And he became very self-sufficient about it, which I really think helped him a lot. So your second thing is when you get to the college application process, listen to your child. They own this. Don't micromanage the process. Offer help and support. Establish deadlines and check in. I do recommend for parents that are very nervous about this that there should be a list taped to the child's bedroom door that says, these are my deadlines, these are the things I have to get done by then, and that they just check things off that they get them done, so you can keep looking, or they can put it on the refrigerator, and you don't have to make it an issue over dinner every night. Unless, of course, they're not doing it. And don't make it more stressful than it already is, and please don't package your child. Let them discover who they are. Your students have responsibilities too. They have 4 years to build a resume. They have to find or at least narrow the choices on their passions. They need to establish a reputation with a counselor, teachers, and others. My son did not know his counselor until he was about a junior, and I told him he needed to go get to know his counselor because that person ultimately had to write a letter for them. If they didn't know who he was, they couldn't write much of a letter. Establish excellent study habits and a solid transcript. Time management skills established when you're younger will save your life all the way through college and grad school. And learn how you will be evaluated by teachers and others. You can Google that. They look at a whole lot more than whether you showed up and got an A. Your application is going to include fully completed accurate forms, grades, test scores. You can list your awards, you list your activities. They only give you, on Common App, they give you 50 characters, and that's not words, it's 50 characters to give a title to what you did, and 150 characters to describe it. Not a whole lot. So your essays and supplementary essays, because you will have one main essay for Common App schools, one main essay for coalition schools and state schools, but you will have, say, one main essay, but most of them also have some supplementary essays. And then there's your teacher evaluations. Your teachers from your junior year are the teachers that will be writing your evaluations. They're going to look at things like how well you got along with others, how creative were the ideas you expressed in class. Did you talk in class, or did you sit in the back row and play cards with your friends? When I've seen kids do that. If they're not impressed with you, it will be hard to get them to even write a recommendation. They have way too many recommendations to write. So a lot of them will pick and choose whose recommendations they're willing to write. You want to make sure you're one of those students. So I guess I did put some stuff on here that I'm going to go through quickly because it's all available online. How long have you known the student? What context? What are the first words that come to your mind to describe the student? In what grade level was the student enrolled? A lot of students will try to get away with a sophomore or a freshman teacher. It's not very impressive to admissions officers. And the courses that you taught. Okay, so the synopsis is, keep up your grades. They do matter, but emphasize what you're learning and be involved in the classroom. With that, I have to add, emphasize your integrity. Cheating is getting to be a problem in schools, and I've seen a lot more of it in the last couple of years than I've ever seen before. And people are cheating because grades are so important to them. But once they've cheated, even if it doesn't make it into their permanent record, that reputation exists, and the teachers all know it, and the principal knows it, and the counselor knows it. So when they write a recommendation, it's not going to be sterling. It's not going to say this student cheated, but it's going to maybe not be as strong as it might otherwise have been. So it's super important. Don't think your actions go unnoticed. They are always noticed in the school. Explore your passions, find out what you love and pursue it, get involved with your community, emphasize quality over quantity. Be a good person. It matters. People pay attention to that, and they will have to comment on it when they do the recommendations. We'll ask that question. Your personal integrity and the way you treat others matters. Make time to really learn about your college choices. Give yourself time and motivation to create an essay that shows your strength and what makes you an engaging, warm, and authentic way. Sorry, I'm running out of voice. The operative word there is show. When you do get around to writing an essay, remember that you're writing a story like it's a letter to a friend, and you want it to be something that makes the person at the other end like you, because if they don't like you, they don't have to support you. Okay? That's good luck. Any questions?
Time for question and answer. Come on, ask questions.
So when teacher usually start writing the
Are you a junior?
Interns, grab the microphone.
You're a junior?
Who's supposed to grab the microphone? So that we can hear the questions and answers. And also work within your time. Thank you.
Yes, her question is when she should get started, and I asked her what year she is. So get started on the essay and the recommendations. The recommendations you should ask for at the end of your junior year while you're still in school. If you haven't done that, you want to do it like on the first day back. Most teachers get more requests than they can handle. So some teachers will say, I will choose which students I'm going to write for. But the majority, at least at Interlake, seem to go by first come, first served, and then they just have a cutoff point. I can't do any more than this. You're past my cutoff date. So get it done as soon as possible. The kids that started asking at the end of junior year aren't necessarily on the top of the list. Usually they get told to come back and ask again in the fall. But the teachers do remember. Oh yeah, you asked me in the fall. Yeah, I'll do it for you. So get it done right away. And then as far as writing your essays, you should be doing that now. Common App goes live August 1st, so it's been live for 3 weeks. Working with students, I've had students that wanted to start in May. I usually put them off until after school is out. I like them to take a little break, a week or so before they get started on this. But around the start of July, they should be into the process of thinking and planning it. I told you that there are supplementary essays as well as a main essay, and I recommend the students do the main essay first. Get one that you're happy with, and then set it aside. And then pull out all your supplemental questions, put them together in one document, and sort them by what they're asking. So that if 5 schools want an essay on an activity, you can have them all together and look at the questions together and the links allowed, because the links vary, and choose an answer so that you can answer all 5 at once. Write the longest one first, and then shorten it down for the others. It's a much more efficient way to do it than addressing each school one at a time. Okay. Yes?
Do you have any recommendations for teachers on how to write good recommendation letters? Because I'm a teacher myself, and I'm sort of struggling with that.
I have the best recommendation ever. Look at MIT's website, search for their example. They have an example and almost like a tutorial of how to write a recommendation letter. It is the best help that I've seen for that.